have a lot more in common than people think, probably from the outside. I mean, I just growing up in El Dorado, Arkansas, I come from Shreveport and stuff. They're not that far away. But I don't think you want to be the Bobbsey twins. The songs we write, thank God, are very much different. Our influences are somewhat the same, but they're very, very different too.
His upbringing in terms of Nashville and traditional country was much more founded than mine. I mean, my dad wasn't as much into the whole Nashville country thing, but the whole spiritual gospel part of it, I get that in spades.
To sum it all up, we're two solo artists that were given a deal as a duo. We stepped into it going, no. No.
And when it started working, we're like, well, this will work for a little while. This will give us something to do, and then when this is over, we can move on and do something else.
Typical music business stuff. We're going to parlay that into the next big deal. Yeah. What is it? 13 years later, we're still doing it. Yeah, we're breaking up, baby, every day.
We're real fortunate as a family to have pretty much our whole heritage right here. This is known as Fort Necessity Farms, and our family started farming here in like 1806, farming cotton. It was a classic, what you think of as a Louisiana plantation. Growing up, we lived in Shreveport, but we came here on weekends a lot. My memories of that place are extremely vivid. It was just the kind of place that was so different and so big and awesome and different from everything in the city. Well, I'd like to show you around our old family home. It's actually built in 1834, I believe. It's always a real special place for me growing up. It's kind of our whole heritage was here. Well, actually, it's not exactly like it used to be. It's kind of gone now for the most part. This used to have a big picket fence all the way around it. Remember so many times walking up the front steps here, thinking this was the biggest house in the whole world. Really doesn't look very big anymore now that the house is gone. My Aunt Martha was the last person that lived here. After she passed away, my dad purchased a house and the property that went with it. We started coming here and realized the house had just been in disrepair for a long time. So we decided as a family project, we'd all pitch in and we were gonna redo the place.
We had looked forward to that for so many years. Then we didn't have it that long and it burned to the ground.
Unfortunately, as a restorer was working in a room, it caught fire and burned.
I remember all our family pictures were up here on this mantle. Grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather. We lost our whole family history, basically. It was probably the saddest day of all our lives. My father built the first big cabin, called it the Phoenix, of course, out of the ashes. I came and built this little cabin here, and we built that one and brought it in, so it's a great place for family reunions and getting it together. We talked about building it back at one point, but we know it'd never be the same, so I guess we'll go with the cabins and let the memories keep us going.
When we came to Fort Necessity, we would oftentimes do things that related to my father's childhood because he grew up coming here with his mother almost every weekend.
I guess the first time I was fishing out here, probably too young to remember. When we first started touring on the road, Ronnie thought I was crazy because I'd go to some bait shop and just get a line and a cork and get a stick if there's a creek anywhere around, you know. Just throw it out in the water, see if I could get a hold of something. I think probably the biggest difference in Ronnie and I, Ronnie, he just moved around a lot when he was a kid. I don't think he had one place that he could really call home where generations of family had been and whatever. He had to, had to rely on making new routes wherever he went. Sure, it makes things a little different for him.
Ronnie was born June the 1st, 1953, in Coleman, Texas. My husband worked with the oil company and had been sent there. In fact, moved us there the day he was due. We found a ranch house that hadn't been lived in for a long time, beautiful place. After Coleman, we went back to Midland. From Midland, I think we went to New Mexico. We even were in Houston for a while.
My father did everything. The majority of what he did over the years was oil field related. He was a nomad. He was hop from job to job. We would grab his guitar, a few pieces of furniture, and take off. We lived so many places. I think at one time I counted 30. My mother may tell you a different story. My sister will tell you another thing.
Seems like we were being uprooted constantly.
We kept going back to El Dorado, Arkansas. That was kind of the home base, I would say. My grandparents were there. We would go back, regroup, and then take off following Jesse Dunn again.
El Dorado is an oil town at its heart, but it's also a very rural area where they have a lot of farming, cattle raising, horses.
We never wanted to live in town. I think it's easier to raise children out in the country. The house on East Main was out in the country, about 5 miles out.
We had a lot of fun with the family. Mom's side of the family was always real close.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 4, and at last count, I'm the oldest of 22, 23 grandkids.
Our cousins were just like family. We would see them just about on a daily basis.
My cousin, Tony, lived 5 miles from us on a street called Rural Route 3.
It was a red dirt road, and as the cars went to our house or back from it, they all left a plume of red dust in the air.
And that was that road. We grew up together out there. We played in the woods, we built forts.
We had a big old dirty pond that the cows used and we did as well to swim in.
That's that dirt road, you know, you keep coming back to as a kid.
I was born in Highland Hospital in Shreveport in 1955. Shreveport was a booming oil and pipeline community, much like places in Texas and Oklahoma. Shreveport was kind of a crossroads between those, and drew my father there. He was an engineer in the pipeline business. Our whole neighborhood is very middle class, you know, a regular kind of neighborhood, not big time, but we weren't poor either. The big boundary line for us was the levee. The Red River had a levee that, when the river would come out of its banks, that would run right up to the back of where our houses were, and they put a levee up to protect us. And you didn't go over the levee. Well, we did, of course, all the time, but you didn't get caught over there without getting a good butt whipping.
Kix just always, I think, thought he could get away with it. He wasn't a bad kid. He was always just kind of reckless about, hey, I'm going to try that.
Man, don't worry about it. They're not going to do anything. I've been getting in trouble coming on this levee my entire life. I'm not going to stop today.
Most of the time, our house seemed fine. It was good, it was a happy place, but there were times when it would erupt, when it was terrifying to be there. Yeah, you didn't want to be there. It was a bad place.
At first, your dad was just as good as you could want someone to be, but then later on, different things got him to drinking, and it brought out the worst in him.
He wasn't a consistent drinker. He would drink and become somewhat violent. I was the one to get between, or in the middle of that.
I remember, you know, a lot of fights and arguments and stuff at the house due to the drinking. And really the best thing for us to do was to leave, you know, go somewhere if we could. I'd go to my room and lock the door and turn on the record player. When I needed to blow that emotion, do something with it, deal with it, that's what I used, what I turned to. Still do.